Now, for those of you who know me well, I am what is known as an arrogant, well, maybe a confident chap. Yet beneath the hard skin, there is actually a soft centre with some vulnerability. Now, let's be honest, who in this day and age doesn't have an element of vulnerability? I recently had a session with my coach who told me to consider a few factors when holding back on certain things. One of them really stuck out. It was a saying of what's the worst that can happen if you tell yourself that. If you answer that question and you make peace with it, then you can make your decision to go for it or not. Now, life's short, and how many people have said or written that in the past? But it is true, and it does take one event or episode for so many of us to realize it. If we can't be true to ourselves or the ones that we love, respect, and adore, then we live a sheltered life from our true feelings and beliefs and opinions. If we hide behind the things that we don't go for what we want in business or in life, then have we truly lived? I doubt it. I'm an angry, impatient person. There's no getting away from that. It's very well known, yet on a recent trip back to the UK, it took just one person to kind of remind me and tell me what I already knew. And I'm now ready to evolve a bit more than I have in the last year. And it was quite simply, stop taking yourself so seriously. Enjoy yourself before life passes you by. Now, I'm not one for New Year's resolutions, and I'm certainly not going to start now. But 2023 is a year that things have to happen. And I'm the only one that can make those things happen. I've got to fix some problems. I've got to look at clear objectives that need to be achieved and measured, and start to visualize some strategies. I want to take my education in the area that I believe I am a bit of an expert, but I want to take that to the next level, both in business and in that subject matter, and finally grow after all of the embargo and the pandemic setbacks that we've had over the past 5 years. For those who are what's called a creator profile, it's easy for us to think outside the box. You come up with the ideas, but the implementation and the route to market are where we struggle. I can certainly relate to that. The ideas are the easy part. It's the prioritization of which of the ideas and the business ventures that we need to focus on first. Thankfully, I've got a good plan of what I want to be doing in 2023. But the first is to reignite my passion for people and for business networking. Recently, we relaunched the business network. And that has done exactly that. It has reignited my fire for business in general, liaising with like-minded people. And I've got to thank Mike Phillis and Rob Grease, the members obviously, and the guests that on a Wednesday morning give me a reason to go and carry on with this networking and educate and assist people, as well as listen to what they have to say so I can assist them. And that's definitely back with a bang. For years, I've bottled up a passion of mine. It's not very sexy, it's not interesting, it's quite a boring subject. But for 40 minutes in this networking group recently, and in front of 20 to 25 subject matter experts in their own field, I delivered a topic that I've studied for well over a decade. Wasn't the greatest of presentations, technical problems occurred, but it was engaging enough and it was a start. And I know I can improve the delivery as I go forward. I can adapt the content across different mediums, both online and of course if I want to do the presentation again in person. I think it was well received, and I broke my duck, and more importantly I avoided a bit of egg on my face. This is quite a personal episode that I've decided to do, and as you can probably tell, it's been planned. It was instigated through my own doubts. They're manifesting, and I've got an urge to overcome them. And since I was 15 years old when I received my first yellow card for dissent and talking back to a referee. I've never had an issue with talking to people, random strangers, unless it was obviously a desirable female. For example, that's when I went into my shell. But speaking to strangers was automatic, and it was natural. With the evolution of social media and the ease that people can, without permission and without necessity, but they still do it, without knowledge or without expertise, they can spread their vitriol opinion for or against you. And let's be honest, mainstream media has engraved the negative opinion permissions in all of us. Anyone can condemn your thoughts, and that is what is programmed into us as we read and watch negative news on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. I couldn't be arsed with a hassle and feeling negativity and reading such, comments and maybe negative feedback, or the perception that was what was going to happen. But what's crazy is 95% of the comments that I have had have been positive. On anything that I've said or done, or videos that I've done, or podcasts, it's been about 95%. So why is the 5% even important? Fundamentally, it's not. In 2019, I stood up in front of about 600 people in Doha. In front of the main speaker, he read my body language. He told me more about my business in 5 minutes and myself than any of my friends, colleagues, acquaintances did in years. I wanted to get more out of this guy. I spoke to him. And this guy was JT Fox. He's an American Canadian. He'd rather rip you to pieces than stroke your ego and make you love him. And that's exactly what I needed. I needed someone to tell me exactly what my problem was. So I decided to travel across to America for nearly 4 weeks. And I soaked up as much of this guy's attitude, his tips, his strategies. I listened to tens of people who he had brought with him on the journey, and I was shattered from all the knowledge. It was just phenomenal. And then you add on the 7 hours of jet lag, and it was exhausting. But I wanted more and more. So I came clean with him on the third day of the first part of the trip. During one of the final sessions on day 3, I kind of plucked up the courage to apologise. So, he snarled back at me, "What are you apologising for?" He looked as if he didn't really give a shit, and nor should he. But during, the first day, I was given the opportunity to kind of discuss my growth issues, and within a short space of time, this stranger who had read my body language told me I was lost and confused about what I wanted in business, and he provided me a plan to take a step back and go slow to go fast, which is where I get those sayings from. It was simple, but it was effective words, and there was an action plan in order to move forward. I owed it to him to apologise. It was the right thing to do, but he kept asking what I was apologising for, and quite simply, I didn't tell anyone that I was working with JT, especially not my existing coach and friend, Andy Preston. But when I attended the event in Doha, I called Andy Preston, and I wanted to research a bit about who this JT Fox guy was. And he wasn't very positive about his sales strategies. He wasn't positive about the way he sold from stage, but I ignored him and I went in anyway. And I'm obviously glad I did. I didn't get fast enough to sit at the front row, which I always want to do. But after lunch, I was one of the first back in the room, and I was there ready and waiting to pay attention. And after lunch and having fed on the positivity of Reggie Batts and the calmness of Eric Wilson, I really wanted to hear more. And as I've explained, so these events to JT, the main events that are there are in front of 600 people, but the core events are in front of 60 other people who are just sponges like me sitting around him, and it's addictive, and you start to get more and more influenced. So as I went on, And it explained the fact that I hadn't admitted where I was going, that certain people were negative about him, but I'd made the decision to come anyway. He was kind of getting more and more, JT was getting more and more irate. But what he did next can only be described as a big fuck you to the doubters and the haters by using the tools that he had in front of him. So I finished by apologising and not showing him the respect that he deserved. And he followed that up by, I followed that up by revealing everything that I had said to Andy. And he just laughed, especially when he told me what he was going to do next. He said, "Tell your friend that I revel in people's doubts and negativity. It's your thoughts that I appreciate, because you're here and not him. And for that, I'm going to show you my appreciation." And what transpired in the coming days is something that is still hard to explain. What it did for my confidence and, dare I say it, my ego. Yes, my ego. Yeah. When I was younger, I could walk on stage as an amateur actor in Aberdeen Arts Centre, and I wanted to stand in front of the camera, but never did I ever expect that my business coach would put me in front of a Hollywood A-list celebrity and interview them for 4 minutes. And I had 4 minutes to make my mark on stage, and I think I did that. When you make one of the top comedic actors of his generation laugh out loud, I'll take that any day of the week. I returned to Doha after the interview and after the events, and I met various celebrities in passing, and it was a phenomenal 3 to 4 weeks in America. But I came back to Doha and my social media exploded because I'd obviously revealed that that Vince and I were now best buds, and the feedback was great. But now and again you get some people who show an interest with a hint of mockery and they're being disingenuous. They just want to be nosy as to how it happened, or so I was thinking at the time. You fast forward to someone who only recently, someone I know but not very well, asked if I was still doing videos and podcasts, and they hadn't seen any. And as we discussed the ins and outs of my procrastination over doing videos and audios, he said, "How many people do you actually think you reach with your social media?" I was like, "I don't know, maybe 200, not many." And he said, "Then you need to get back at it, because if they're like me, you're inspiring 200 more people in the world." And that's all I needed to hear to do this right now. Because whether he was extracting the Michael or not, it didn't matter. It was a reminder that you don't have to be Ronaldo, you don't have to be Richard Branson, or Rob Moore, or JT Fox, or Michael Bowen, for that matter, who all are inspiring their own numbers as coaches and philanthropists and entrepreneurs and business coaches in general. I need to start somewhere, and I don't mind if that's 20 people or 200 people. I just want to share my knowledge of being an entrepreneur, living in the Middle East, going through the challenges, coming up with ideas, getting feedback from people, and doing coaching. So here's the first video and podcast of 2023, and yes, it's in my car, and I don't care. Mwah.